Welcome to Under the Fig Tree podcast from the Enrollment Office at Concordia Seminary. Join us as we talk theology and life under the fig tree.
Welcome back to another episode of Under the Fig Tree. I'm one of your hosts, Pastor Tom Schlund.
And I'm also one of your hosts, Katie Gaschler.
You know her because she's been around longer than I have, at least on Under the Fig Tree. But as we've made it into this new season of episodes, hopefully you're getting to know both of us a little bit better. So Katie, how's life? How are things going?
Good. As far as seminary stuff goes, we are in the middle of visit season, gearing up for bringing lots of people here for their individualized visits, and looking way forward to Vocatio Retreat in April. But it'll be here soon, so if you're interested in that, look at our visit page and wait for that registration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we love welcoming people to campus, and it's a good time. But we also love welcoming people onto Under the Fig Tree, and so we're excited today as we continue along in our series of meeting our new faculty members to have Dr. James Fickenscher here with us.
Thank you.
One of our new professors, and so welcome to Under the Fig Tree.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. How's the first semester here as a faculty member going for you?
It's been going very well. Of course, I keep the standards low, so no students have walked out en masse. The seminary hasn't burst into flames yet, so I think we're doing okay.
That's good.
Yeah.
You checked the two most important things off the list.
Right.
No student protests and no flaming seminary. So
Yeah. At least not
good.
the whole campus.
Yes.
You never know.
Well, that's great. Well, we're excited to spend a little bit of time with you today, getting to know you and helping some of our prospective students get to know you as well. We'd love if you could maybe start off by just introducing yourself a little bit more, maybe you and your family, and then talking about how you ended up as a pastor. What was that path of ministry for you to end up at the seminary and then end up serving as a pastor?
Great, yeah, and I'll try to keep this in less than 45 minutes. So the first question, just to say, I'm James Fickenscher. I am from Texas originally. Long before all that, I was originally going to UT Dallas to be a math professor. That's what I wanted to be. And then we make plans and God chuckles.
Right.
And so I ended up coming to the seminary after finishing the math degree. And I'll talk more about that in just a moment. And I'm married. I have a wonderful wife named Rachel. God has blessed us with two amazing kids.
Awesome.
And so she is also from Texas. But even though we're from Texas, we've settled into St. Louis pretty well. So
people from Texas don't like leaving Texas, right? So
I just brought Texas with me a little bit.
That's good.
I did use the example in class today of how Coke can mean things on different levels of meaning. Soda in general versus Coca-Cola.
That's true.
That's kind of a Texas thing. But and so we got married in 2008, right after college, and then I came here for seminary, and then we stayed for graduate work, and I did some teaching out of Concordia, Portland, finished up some graduate work, and then been a pastor since 2017 is when I was ordained and received my call into ministry. And my first call was down to St. Paul Lutheran Church in McAllen, Texas, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that too.
Yeah.
And that's where we were until we came here. And so your second question about kind of the path to ministry. So the pastoral ministry has kind of been in my family for a while. There's been quite a few Fickenschers that are pastors.
A notable one at our other seminary, too.
Yeah, so Dr. Carl Fickenscher, I think we're like fourth cousins. He has that figured out. I just say that we're primos. Yeah, we're cousins. It's okay. So it's always kind of been in the background, but growing up, I always loved math, I loved puzzles, I loved all those different things. I'm a huge nerd, I'll say that anywhere. And as I was going to choose my path for college, I'd always loved math, I've always loved teaching people and helping people. And there was this other side of perhaps being a pastor, but I always had that internal doubt and struggle with grace. Grace is such a problem for us.
Yeah.
And so there was that understanding of, I just don't think I'm good enough for that. I love teaching, I love math, I can do that. I don't know that I'm good enough to be a pastor. Certainly there's somebody that's more personable, that knows more about the Bible, all those different things. And so my path to being a pastor started with me then going to college with the intent of being a math professor. And over the course of that first year, lots of just thinking through my life and my path and where I was going. And it was my second year, it was my sophomore year of college, that I had that aha moment. And I would say I'm not sure if I heard a voice or not. I don't know, but it was Jesus in any case. But kind of hearing that voice of God saying, in a sense, you're right, James, you're not good enough, but I am. And all I'm asking you to do is love people. And I said, well, I can do that. I can love people. And so from my sophomore year on, I planned, from that moment on, my plan was seminary after I finished college. My school, I was at UT Dallas, which at the time, well, it still is, a huge nerd school. There wasn't a philosophy degree or those kinds of things, so I finished math because I thought math was fun. Huge nerd.
Yeah.
And
somebody's got to enjoy it.
Someone's
right?
got to love it. Yeah. And that really helped me understand, actually, even theology. I'm going to talk more about that, too, if you'd like. But so we finished the undergraduate degree in 2008 and then came here.
Well, that's great. Yeah, we were talking with Dr. Tonetti in another episode, and I think I mentioned how much I enjoy hearing other people's paths to ministry, because as we talk with prospective students, so many of those same things come up in terms of, doubting whether or not I'm qualified or if I'm good enough, or there's just a lot of things that weigh heavily on people. And so one of the things that I enjoy about being able to do this podcast is just to introduce our prospective students to more voices that might resonate with them and say, oh, yeah, he struggled with that too, and God brought him through it. And so
Amen.
I appreciate you sharing that. So he came through, did math, came to the seminary, did advanced studies, finally made it into the parish. You said you were serving in McAllen, Texas, correct? What did you enjoy most about pastoral ministry or parish ministry?
Yeah, so I served as Associate Pastor of Discipleship and Education, was my full title, at St. Paul Lutheran Church, School, and Early Learning Center. It's also the full title. And really all that meant was I got to be essentially your normal parish pastor. So I had a senior pastor who was wonderful, and he was able to handle a lot of the administrative things, which means I really just got to visit, preach, teach, be with people, counsel people. And as a pastor, my two greatest joys, they're both the people. That's always there is no ministry without people. And it's amazing, especially thinking about prospective students as an audience for this, is, the people of God, yes, they're sinful and there's struggles in every church. But they're so loving, and so being able to just go into the lives of God's people and having them invite you into their lives in such a deep way that as they're going through the darkest moment of their life, you get to be there. As they're going through the best moments of their life, you get to be there. And every step of the way, you get to be a visible reminder that God is there with them. And it's just such a wonderful, beautiful thing. And then personally, as James, one of my favorite things as pastor, I've always loved teaching. So I could teach Bible study all day, every day, and come out just as pumped as I did at the beginning of the day. Those are my favorite parts of ministry. And thankfully, my senior pastor liked that I liked teaching. So I got to do a lot of teaching.
That's good.
The other part that I didn't expect to like before going into the parish was actually personal counseling. So I always made it very clear, I don't mean licensed therapy. I'm not a therapist. But that personal spiritual counsel was an area that when I left the seminary, I felt the most inadequate in that area. And yet it became to be one of my favorite parts very quickly. For that same reason I just mentioned, is you get to walk with people. And people will share things that they maybe don't share with anybody else. And you get to speak the word of God to that area of their life. And there's no greater privilege and yet no greater challenge at the same time. So teaching and counseling were my two areas of greatest joy. I like preaching as well, but I consider that part of teaching. I know my practical profs would disagree with that, but that's also part of the teaching ministry.
Yeah.
So I served there for 7 years. We had a school. We had an early learning center, so it was really great to get to know students and their families. We had a lot of students that were not part of our congregation, that came from all kinds of various backgrounds, and so we got to be also a pastoral figure far beyond just the congregational context as well.
What a great outreach opportunity there.
What a great opportunity, and I will miss, now that I'm here, I'll say this out loud, now that I'm now a professor here, I will miss having a screaming class of 4-year-olds running up and calling me their pastor and giving me a big hug. Right?
I haven't had any seminarians do that to you.
I have not had seminarians do that yet.
Weird.
I think I'd end up bruised.
Right.
So that's just a little bit about my ministry context. A lot of the normal things you'd expect a pastor to do, even though I was, quote, an associate pastor. But 7 wonderful years. I had no intention of leaving. I had no intention of going anywhere. I had a few calls that I had wrestled with throughout the time there, until we received the call to come here.
So what was that, I don't know if you want to call it a decision-making process or a prayerfully considered process to, make the decision to come here? What was that like for you?
That's a great question. So do you mean for seminary or for teaching? Because they're similar but not the same.
So here now.
To come teach.
Yeah, well, both, I guess. Answer both.
All right.
Yeah.
So they're similar in that I always ask myself the same sets of questions, I guess. And so I'm always a fan of pros and cons lists. I might be kind of a boring old man on that. I like writing it out. You write out the pros, you write out the cons. Seeing it all at once is really helpful.
It's a logical, structured math brain.
I'm a math guy, yeah. And they're not weighted the same either. But really, a lot of the prayer and a lot of the struggle is just discerning where can my gifts best be used for the kingdom of God. And so knowing that even in undergrad, so to go to my first decision to come to the seminary, I really enjoyed math. I was really good at math. I loved helping other people love math. Whether or not that worked or not, I don't know. But I loved that, and I was pretty good at that. But then as I was wrestling with the decision of, Jesus kind of saying, I just want you to love people, kind of pushing me towards the seminary route, and kind of coming to that prayerful decision. So lots of prayer is a major part of this. Lots and lots of prayer, lots of discussion with other people. It's not a decision you should ever make by yourself. But talking with pastors, talking with those that knew me, what gifts did they see in me? How did they think I could best use those gifts for God's kingdom? And then coming to that decision of, I love math, and there's nothing wrong with loving math. Being a math professor is wonderful. At the same time, I really felt the best use for God's kingdom was to take every ounce of intellect that I had and put it to the service of the kingdom a bit more directly, I guess I might say. And so to put every ounce of who I am as a person, as a thinker, even as a mathematician, to how can I help people just know Jesus better. And so then the decision to come here was quite similar. It's the same as if, so once you're out in the parish, right, we have more churches that need pastors than we have pastors. And so especially for pastors going out in the current realm, they're probably going to get more calls than previous generations of pastors did. And so the process there was very similar then to the process of coming here. I already know that where I am, I'm doing what I'm called to do. Right, I had the call document in my desk. It was always right there. My description of duties to keep me honest and to keep me on it, and really then discerning again how can I best serve, or to use another phrase, where is God leading me to use my gifts for the best service to His kingdom that I can give. And so the next step again was a lot of prayer. A lot of talking with mentors, talking with people who know me, and then eventually coming to that decision of I love being a pastor. I love serving these people. But if I can be used to help shape future pastors, if I can even, having them in class, if they're just even the slightest bit a better pastor and a better theologian and a better exegete because I was able to walk with them in class, then I'm still serving the people of God, just in a much more indirect and yet much fuller way.
Yeah, President Egger had a comment on an episode that he was on about multiplying the ministry that I really enjoyed. I hadn't heard him say that before, but how you can be only one person in a church where you're serving, but and it can be kind of hard to think about bringing pastors to come and serve at the seminary, but here is an opportunity to multiply that ministry and forming and shaping new pastors. And I appreciated that kind of perspective, because I think sometimes people go, well, why do we take you out of that role of,
Right.
teaching kids and doing discipleship and doing all of the things that you were doing before to come here? But here you have that real awesome opportunity to impact others.
I do. And I mean, a major key component, so as, it was Katie was asking again, what, in general, what does that process look like? And speaking to any prospective students that might come here, the first answer is a lot of prayer. You can never get past just getting on your knees before Christ and asking, how can I best serve you? But then the next step is God speaks often through people. That's a major part of our theology. And so talk to people. Right? Talk to your pastor, talk to close friends, talk to relatives. What gifts do they see in you? Or do they see gifts in you that would be really well fit for the ministry? And often, and even, of course, you know this better than I do, but a lot of even our students here that I've talked to have shared the experience of the idea of being a pastor was not something that they came up with, but it was something that somebody else that they trusted noticed in them and said, hey, maybe you should consider this. And so listening to those people, I think, is an also important part of that discernment process of, no, maybe the best use of your gifts is not serving as a pastor, and that's okay. But maybe it is.
Right.
And so pray a lot and talk to people and listen to the people of God. Those are two major, not rocket science, right, but two major key components of that process.
Things that we need to be reminded of
All the time.
So maybe we should switch gears just a little bit to talking a little bit about what you've come here to teach.
Okay.
Now that we've heard about your journey to getting here, you're not teaching math. That's not a subject that we teach at the seminary, but you are teaching classes. So what's your kind of area of study and interest, and what are the classes that you're getting to teach while you're here?
That's a great question. So in many ways, I'm a New Testament faculty. So my area within the faculty here is I teach exegetical courses on New Testament books. And so for those prospective students who might not know what exegetical means, it just
One
means...
of our fun words here.
Yeah. I'm one of the Bible guys. Right? Of course, we're all Bible guys. But I really teach the New Testament books. And my area then of focus is my dissertation work was on Greek linguistics, and specifically how Greek linguistics overlap with three letters of Paul, so the first and second Timothy and Titus, and asking the question, if you've ever studied Greek, you learned that word order is a lot more flexible in Greek, but the open question still is, but what does that mean? What does word order actually do? Syntax changes, what does that mean? And that was kind of the background for what I decided to study. And so I really enjoy diving into nuances of Greek text. I'm a huge nerd, again. And I really enjoy, I've gotten to know, I believe, Paul pretty well. I'll meet him one day, he's dead.
Yes.
But I've gotten to know Paul and his theology pretty well.
He wrote a lot.
But I also have experience teaching just New Testament courses in general, New Testament introduction courses. And then I'm also teaching our opening class for new students on interpreting the Word. So kind of the larger picture of what is the relationship of words and meaning, and how do we get into this process of saying, I know what this text means. And what does that look like? And that's the first class that they take out of our department. and that's a wonderful class to teach as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, so we have the exegetical department, the practical department that teaches all the counseling and preaching and other skills, systematics, which is how we organize our doctrine, and then historical, the history of the church, just for our prospective students who are curious about where all of these classes fall. And so, yeah, the Bible is the foundation for all that we do, like you said. We're all Bible guys, but somebody's got to teach us how to read and interpret it too, so that's... The exegetes are the pros at that.
I was just thinking if the 4 departments were Harry Potter houses, what would they be? You can think about it and get back to us. We'll talk
Is that
about it
in
later.
your nerddom? Harry
Yeah,
Potter,
what kind of nerd are you?
I know the names of them, I think.
Okay.
Right. Slytherin's the bad one.
Yes.
Right.
All right. That's about all I got.
Okay.
Oh, it's Huff and Puff, Gryffindor, and I don't know the
So
other.
close.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
No.
We were in another conversation yesterday where somebody was describing themselves as a nerd, and then went on to tell us about it was Star Wars and Lego.
Yeah.
And I forget what the other one was, but anyway, there's different areas of nerddom, I suppose.
Yeah, you gotta pick what kind of nerd you are.
No, so I've always been into, not that you ever need to know this about me ever again. So as we were growing up, I did like Legos a lot, and puzzles and board games and card games, and my brother would get all the space Legos, and that was fine. I got all the sword and sorcery Legos. So I got the dragons and the knights and that kind of stuff. And so but I also like Star Wars and Star Trek, and I'm that kind of nerd too. It's okay.
It's all right. Fun facts that we learn on Under the Fig Tree.
Yeah.
Fun facts that we learn.
That doesn't go in your CV anywhere, so somebody's got to find out about it.
Someone's got to say it. And I've always loved puzzles, and so that's kind of where math falls in with that. Math is just one big logical puzzle. That's all it is.
Yeah. And you said math influenced your kind of love of theology or your teaching of theology, and how did that work?
Yeah, so math is just all logical, just patterns of logic. That's all that math is. And so as you're studying languages, right, I mean, languages are all patterns. And so whenever I was going into especially Greek, which I love Hebrew too, but Greek is my specialty. So as I was going into Koine Greek or ancient Greek, and learning that, it's all patterns. I mean, it's all patterns of meaning, patterns of structure. And so then I had my first class, which is the class that I'm teaching now, which is kind of surreal to me still. So my first class we call it Interpreting and Communicating the Word. And I had Dr. Veltz, who's the one that wrote the book on it. And
what does this mean?
What does this mean? And from that point on, I just fell in love with interpretive method. I fell in love with the idea of, what are the patterns of meaning, and how does stuff mean stuff? It sounds very philosophical. And
sounds like a question that would be in Dr. Veltz's book, too.
How does stuff mean stuff? Well, what do you mean by stuff? What do you mean by mean? And so all those different questions became I just fell in love with Greek. I fell in love with just the process of meaning and the process of meaning making. And then where the math degree also comes in, and my math background is how do all the patterns then fit together in a logically cohesive way? Which now I'm getting into systematics a little bit, but
they all blend together.
They all blend together, but as you're thinking through even our teachings of what we believe about Scripture, what Scripture says about God, what it says about Jesus, how those all fit together it's all patterns, right? And good systematics or good theology is you fit the patterns right, right? And so being able to take the math background, not only to the study of language and the study of interpretation, but then also how do the pieces fit together? And that's what we call systematics. So I've always used, I like the way that you described it, I've always used the language of a puzzle. You think of a jigsaw puzzle of the exegetical department is telling you what are the pieces and which pieces go with which pieces on the micro level. So which are the pieces that fit together, and then the systematics then tells you, well, how do they all fit together into one whole picture, and what is that whole picture, and how does it all fit together? And then the practical department kind of gives you the so what. Right. So what does it mean that this says that? How do I live that out? How do I teach that to people? What you do with it. And then history then can tell you is how has the church put these pieces together in the past. What has worked, what hasn't worked, what fits well and what doesn't. And so you can learn from how the church has done the puzzle long before you ever stepped onto the scene.
Yeah.
And I'm just excited that I get to be that little part of the process of helping guys and helping women too prepare for, well, this piece doesn't go with that piece, but it does go with this piece, and here's why, and allowing them to be able to learn to do that process well. It's exciting.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's great. Well, one of the things we like to do with every guest that comes on under the fig tree is ask them to provide some advice. And I feel like you've provided some good advice so far, but if you had one opportunity or like one piece of advice that you would want to share with a prospective student as they're sort of discerning through what does it mean to think about ministry in general or the seminary in particular, what would that advice be?
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, the question that I've always asked myself when considering these major decisions is, again, where can my gifts, my passions, my talents be best used for the kingdom of God? And so my advice, I suppose, would be to ask yourself that question, but also ask others that question about yourself. Ask people that you trust, people that know you, because God works through each other. God works through one another. And so being able to ask those that know you well, and they can say, yeah, I've actually thought about you as a pastor for a while. I just didn't know how to tell you. Or they can say, I can see why you're thinking about that, but I really think you shouldn't do that for X, Y, or Z. And being able to just seek the wise counsel of trusted mentors and friends, I think would be a great step in that process.
Yeah. That's great advice.
Great. On to the important stuff.
The really important stuff, yes.
Yeah, I think it's time.
I did miss one of the 4 houses, didn't I?
Yeah, and you said one of them wrong, but it's not important now. It's fine.
Someone out there might leave it in the comments or something. They'll be like, wait a minute, it was not.
Oh, and if someone out there wants to put the 4 departments into what houses they think it would be let us know. Yes. I'm very interested. So now we like to do a segment called Ripe for the Pickin' or Leave It on the Tree, where we each take turns kind of saying some random things, and you are required to have an opinion about them.
Okay.
If you like it, it's ripe for the pickin'. If you don't, it's leave it on the tree. So I'll go first.
Go for it.
I don't even know what yours are.
I don't hardly know what mine are either, but I have them written down. So
good. I have mine written down.
At the appropriate time.
So ripe for the pickin' or leave it on the tree. Climbing trees. I just didn't even think about the tree metaphor there. It threw me off.
I'll say leave it on the tree.
But if you...
Do I have to explain my opinion as well?
It's usually more entertaining if you do.
Oh,
yeah.
All right. So you might have picked up on this by now. I'm not the most athletic or dexterous kind of person.
I feel like you said you were a nerd, maybe.
Yeah, well, but you could be a nerd and
That's
be really
true.
good at sports. But
I don't like to assume anything.
But he's a
about
math nerd.
I'm a math nerd. Just to give you some context, a friend of mine in college, we made a us versus walking contest. And every day that one of us walked around without tripping on anything at all, we would get a point.
Nice.
And anytime that we did, then walking would get a point. And I think we stopped when walking was beating us 18-1 or something like that. So I think climbing a tree sounds really fun, and as a kid, I did do that, but I don't trust myself to do that without getting significantly hurt. I also don't care for spiders or whatever else you're going to find up there, because you're in their house whenever you're up there.
It's true.
What about you?
I would say at this point in my life, it's probably leave it on the tree too.
Yeah.
I did enjoy it when I was a kid, but now I'm as tall as the trees, and it takes a lot more to get up. And yeah, I can use a ladder, I suppose, if I need to.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in theory, I like tree climbing.
Do you do a lot of tree climbing?
No.
You go home and climb the trees?
No, that's probably a bad idea. So I will leave it on the tree. Leave the tree climbing on the tree.
Yes.
Which means then are you climbing the tree? I'm overthinking this. Your turn.
Well, along the outdoor theme, right for the picking or leave it on the tree, mowing the lawn.
Oh, man. So that's a hard one. So on one hand, I'll say leave it on the tree, and that I don't really care for this thing we call sweating. I don't really care for it a whole lot.
St. Louis is a rough place for you, isn't it?
Well, coming from McAllen, Texas,
oh, that's
where
true.
It's
cooled off a little bit.
It got below 70 for maybe 3 weeks of the year. So that aspect of it I don't care for. But at the same time, it is, I'll say, right for the picking, in the fact that you get to see immediate results of what you've done. You can just put in some music and some headphones and just have some time while your kids are screaming about something else, and you get to just push a lawnmower for a while. So I'd say right for the picking, if it's a manageable, nice yard size, 'cause that's also a factor. I think after about 20 or 30 minutes, I'm done. Whether it's finished or not, I'm done.
It's over.
So I don't know. How about you?
Yeah, I would say right for the picking, in the sense of the sort of mindlessness of it, and just having an opportunity to not have to think a whole lot, and you can listen to music or whatever else you want to do. After about the 5th time I've had to do it over the summer, it's just like, let's just turn it into a forest. Or my wife and I have talked about like tilling up the front yard and turning it into a garden. I was like, do we even need grass? Like, couldn't we just do something else with it? But so
I got people in my neighborhood that are growing corn in there. It's not a lot of corn, but they have corn growing in their front yards.
Yeah, we lived in 2 houses at the call we were serving in Iowa. We lived in one for a few years, then found one closer to church that was more conducive for our family. So we moved, and at the first house we had a big lawn, so I had a riding lawnmower, and it was great. And we moved into one with a very manageable sized yard that was perfect. And then we left to come here, and I no longer had the riding lawnmower, and now I have a lawn that could use it, but I have the push mower that I got for the small yard, so that probably lends itself to my dislike too sometimes.
Yeah. Don't tell my husband this, but it is ripe for the picking. I just don't want to have to do it every time.
He'll take turns with you now or something.
Yeah, we bought one of the electric lawnmowers, and they're so easy and quiet and pleasant. So, yeah.
Can you do your whole yard in a charge? Nice.
Yeah, we can. Yep.
That's fun.
And no gas smell?
Yeah.
All that.
Nothing. You just plug it in, charge it. That's it. It's pretty great.
You probably don't even need noise-canceling headphones to hear your music, because it's like a Prius on your grass.
Yeah, it is. It's like a Prius on the grass. Okay, so right for the picking or leave it on the tree. E-readers. Like a Kindle, or do they make other kinds? I'm sure. But.
Yeah.
They used to. They probably still do.
Yeah. My answer probably will not surprise anyone. This one's a leave it on the tree for me.
Yeah.
I like the versatility of them. I like, especially if it's a really good e-reader. It's not your typical, phone screen or something. It's soft text. It's really kind of nice to read. You can make notes, search stuff. But nothing for me just beats the tactile, the feel, even the smell of the book in your hand. And so I've always been a physical book guy, unless it's cost prohibitive. So there was one book I had to get for my dissertation that if I bought it, it was going to be $250.
Yikes.
But the ebook was $30. So I said, okay.
Yeah.
I suppose I can do
that.
Yeah, this is something I've developed stronger feelings on, I think, over my life. I can do e-readers for fiction. So like if I'm reading fiction, e-readers fine, like take it wherever and read that. But if it's an academic book or a book that I need for school or prepping for teaching or sermon writing or whatever the case is, I need the physical book in front of me. There's just something about the tactile feel, but even just in my own mind, like keeping track of pages, like I can visualize pages where they're at or like where things were on the page if I had the book. But if I have the e-reader, there's no point of reference because it's just one digital screen after the next. So right for the picking for fictional reading.
That's fair. Yeah, they are right for the picking. I will pick a real book over the e-reader, but I do enjoy having my e-reader. So.
Yeah, very helpful.
Yeah.
The functionality of them is
For
incredible.
travel, it's so great. Yeah, but
It's in the
I
moment
love owning books.
it's in the moments where I have to pack up and move my bookshelves in my office where
You
I
wish you
wish
had
that
some.
I had them on the e-reader because
Yep.
I'm like, oh, there's so many boxes.
So the next step is, are you into books on tape? That's also the next one.
I can't do it. I can't focus that long. I can do a podcast, but I zone out if I just listen to a book.
Yeah, we've done it on like long car trips, but that's about the only place that I can do them. How about you?
I've never really tried all that hard.
Yeah.
Every now and then there was a time where I just have scripture just being read out loud on repeat, which is fantastic. But then I wanted to go back to music because I like music. So.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
No, that's good. Well, one of us usually writes out ours first, and so then I've just been keeping up with Katie's theme whenever I see what she's written. So my right for the next, or the last right for the picking is smartphones.
So it's, again, everything is nuanced with us exegetes. But in terms of the functionality of them, I got to say it's ripe for the picking. In terms of what used to be 70 devices and a computer that would fill more than this room
Right.
is now just in your pocket at any moment in time. And so the accessibility of information, the ability to essentially have a computer, a PDA, and all kinds of stuff all in one thing is pretty fantastic. On the other hand, I'll say leave it on the tree, in that you also have to set boundaries, and so they're very powerful devices, but at the same time, are they too powerful? Right? That's
We'll probably get ads on our phones after we're done here for boundary setting apps.
Yeah,
or something,
right.
right?
Yeah, and so, and I think it has to be an age appropriate thing as well. I think there's a time and place where having a smartphone is really, really helpful. There's a time and a place where, of course, back in the day, we bought my grandma those old phones that just had the 9 buttons. She can call someone, and that's all she needed. And that
The
was
good
fine.
old days, yeah.
We work with someone like that.
We do work with someone
If Jesse
who
could just have a
Yep.
flip phone, he would.
He still
he
has
would
a
be
flip
great
phone.
with that. Yeah, his personal phone is a flip phone. His work phone is a smartphone.
Yeah.
Katie.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always going to have one. I've accepted, but they are just annoying. So leave it on the tree out of spite.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta be bold with your answer.
Yeah.
Mine is pretty much just the similar or same answer that you gave of the amazingness of everything that you can have and carry around, but the obnoxiousness of the interruptions and the distractions.
You just want to be left
And
alone
so
sometimes.
It's kind of like the love-hate relationship.
Yeah.
And I'm a nerd in many ways too, and technology is one of my kind of nerddoms. But so it's really cool all they can do, but the more and more they infiltrate our life, the more I'm like, how about we just go outside?
And
Or
mow
do-
the lawn.
Well, yeah, but not when it's so hot to make us sweat. Maybe.
Oh, yeah.
That's,
Well, that's impossible not to.
that's true. Well, great. Well, thanks for being here with us today. We appreciate
Thank you for having me.
the time that we had here, and I'm sure we'll invite you back for another episode on some other topic where you don't have to introduce yourself for the whole time. But we appreciate getting to share our faculty with our prospective students, because you guys are one of the greatest aspects of coming to study here and being able to learn and be encouraged. So thank you for heeding the call to come and to serve here. And for our listeners and our viewers, if you have not gotten connected with us yet, we would love to have you connect with us through our request for information form. You can find that link connected with the podcast, but also then on our website at csl.edu. We'd love to be able to encourage you as you consider the ways that God might have you serve. And if you're a church worker or someone else who's listening, think about those people that you know, that you can encourage, that you can identify and pick out, and that you can encourage and connect with us as well, because you are a huge impact in people's lives. So we appreciate you being a part of this process too. So we invite you to like and share and subscribe and all those things so that you can know when the next episodes come out. And we look forward to you joining us on the next time that we gather under the fig tree.